Hi, my name's Neil. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Thanks for joining me. I'm a 46-year-old skateboarder who has got back into it again. I gave up in my teens and started all over again several years ago now. But I'm sure many of you out there can relate to that, and hopefully that's why you're here. Today's video is an update on what I've been learning recently and some added extra bits and pieces of what's happened along the way. Mainly it's about a new trick that I have just learned, which is a backside feeble grind. But during this process I also set up some new trucks. I had a problem with my board, so I'm going to add all that in together to just give you the full roundup. So let's get into it. So if you're a regular viewer of my videos, you'll know that I recently learned to do frontside Smith grinds. They're getting pretty good now. I'm quite happy. But during that process, I realized that my trucks were so heavily worn that it was making it kind of hard to do those kind of grinds on the steel coping of the mini ramp I was skating. The trucks were kind of gripping quite a lot, and that was kind of forcing me to get thrown off when they kind of gripped and stalled during the grind. And so I was considering changing out my trucks for some new ones, some very fresh metal, and when trucks are brand new they're very slidey, so I kind of thought, you know, maybe I'd be killing two birds with one stone and it would help me grind a bit further and a lot smoother. And at the same time, my trucks were so worn out before that they were possibly going to break pretty soon, and I don't want to experience that, and don't want to experience them actually breaking while I'm riding. So they were right down halfway through the axle, I think. So yeah, right down through the main metal and well into the axle. And I thought the axle was going to give up sooner or later, and it was a good time to change the trucks. So with that, I also normally ride independent 149s, which I've always been very happy with. I've ridden Indy trucks since I was a teenager, even before that. I think my second ever set of trucks were independents, and from there onwards it was always independent. Yeah, I just always ride Indies. And when I came back to skating about 7 years ago, I tried some other trucks, but really I just settled on the independents because I got so used to them. So I have some other sets of independent trucks, like brand new ones that I could use. But recently a new brand has come along called Slappy, and they are largely modeled on independent trucks, I think one of the previous generations. And their main difference is that they have a bit more kingpin clearance. So they're kind of designed, and as the name would suggest, you know, doing slappies, you kind of want lots of kingpin clearance because you don't want to be grinding on your kingpin. Kingpins just get in the way, and why most truck manufacturers still stick with such a high kingpin design, I have no idea. These days, by now, surely the design would have evolved enough that the kingpins are a lot lower. It's something that Grind King have done in the past, and I've always used Grind King kingpins in my independent trucks to basically negate that. And so I could just go on carrying on doing that with my Grind King kingpins in my independent trucks. I know Grind King have come out with some new trucks. They kind of don't appeal to me because they're like pre-worn. They've got the kind of grooves already in them. To me, that's like, it's almost like a waste of time or a waste of material, because I will grind my trucks in to that kind of state within about a month of riding, within a couple of weeks even. I get the flat spots within a couple of weeks of riding. So I don't see any point in me buying Grind King trucks for that purpose. I know they've got more things going about them, you know, you can adjust the wheelbase and all of that, but to be honest, I'm happy with the wheelbase of my deck. I don't need all of these kind of added extras, and I think they're really hard to get hold of in this country anyway. And the main thing is I don't like change. I want to feel comfortable on my board, and because the Slappy trucks are modeled on Indies, all the kind of talk about them is that they ride like Indies. Apparently the Grind Kings ride like Indies too. I mean, everybody can probably say that about their marketing, but the Slappies look like independents, and you know, they're just easier for me to get hold of as well. I know that Ace trucks as well are modelled on independents. I've never tried Ace. I have no intention of really changing trucks. It's just an opportunity came up to try out these Slappies. So I got some slappy trucks. Big thanks to Steve for sending them over to me. I got them put on the board and started riding them, and so far I'm really enjoying them. So I've got a bit of video of the trucks like before and after and trying them out that's amongst all of this video. But as I say, the main video was about learning the Feeble grinds, and I started to think about doing these while I was doing the Smith grinds because it's such a similar kind of stance and just the angle of the grind, latching the truck on but being on the rail, you know, it has a lot of similarities to a Smith grind, but it's just in the other direction. Your board is facing up out the ramp rather than down into the ramp. But there are a lot of similarities in kind of the structure of it, and even actually the way that it feels when you're doing the grind. So it was on my radar. I tried tentatively, I don't know, maybe about a year ago to just put them onto the coping, and I was doing some Feeble stalls just to kind of get the lock in. I'd done Feeble fakies in the past. When I first came back to skating, I think in 2018, I learned to do Feeble fakies. I didn't keep up with them, so I don't do them now. I've got kind of like a irrational fear about just doing them or even trying one now. It's much like my last video. If you didn't see that one, it was about doing roll-ins off the platform into the ramp. I'd done them before, left them for a long time. This irrational fear had built up, and so I just went at them and learnt them all over again, and now I'm happy to do them again, at least on the mini ramps. So I have the same thing about Feeble fakies, and I think that's a running theme. If I learn something that's a little bit scary and I get them, but then I leave them too long before doing them again, I get an irrational fear about trying them again, and then the longer you leave it, the worse it gets. So I should probably go back and just do Feeble fakies again, because there's no real reason why I can't do them. I do fully decked up rock fakies, I'm doing Feeble grinds, you know. There's no reason not to be honest. So anyway, the Feeble grinds, I'd been putting them over the coping and just getting into the Feeble position and then turning 180 out of them for a little while. You know, as I say, I kind of tentatively threw them up there just to see how comfortable it was. No problem at all, could do that. And then I embarked on the Smith grind escapade and kind of forgot about them for a while. So now that I've learned the Smiths, I've gone back to the Feebles, and I think it was quite surprising how quickly I managed to start grinding them, because before I didn't quite have the feel of where I was going to sort of place it and push it into the grind. I tried to do Feeble grind slappies on a curb a long time ago, kind of during the lockdowns, and I could never quite get it to grind, but I think I just hadn't got the knack of leaning back enough and pushing into it. So I'd just get on top, probably lean too far forward and, you know, just lock up and stop still. So I just didn't have the knack. Whereas now, after doing the Smiths, I knew what it felt like to sort of be pushing into the grind with my feet and leaning back and pushing the grind out in front of me. And that really helped in getting the Feebles to grind. So didn't take me more than about, I don't know, 10 minutes maybe to start grinding the Feebles. And then, much like when I was learning the Smith grinds, there was an epic long time of just pushing into the grinds and seeing how far I could grind, getting on them and sitting on them comfortably and getting a grind of some distance. I didn't want to do like a tiny little squeak and then come out of it. I wanted it to be a nice pushed out grind and a bit of distance. And if you saw my video about the Smith grinds, that was how I wanted to go about doing the Smith grinds. I wanted a decent length one before I was even going to bother trying to turn out. And this is the same case for the Feebles. So I've got a lot of footage of a lot of grinds, but not actually landing them and turning out. And so we're going to thrash through that. I'm going to apologize if you think it's boring, the repetitive attempts, but to me it's like reality. This is like the whole learning process, and you can see kind of the curve of how they go up and down. So some are good, not so good, and it kind of came in waves where I was doing some quite good ones and then they got pretty bad, and then some good ones came back again, and it's all about feeling it out, where to put my weight on my feet and pushing them out, all the body balance and angles and force and everything required to do it. I'm not going to go through a kind of how-to right now. If somebody really wants me to do that, I can create a separate video. There are lots out there already. Maybe one day I will when I get really good at them, but that's not what this is about today. It's just about the process of actually learning them. So we're going to look through all that footage and basically see the process of the grind. I think in total to get the first one, it was 2 sessions. So within 6 hours, I'd landed one, which I was amazed about because it took me about a year to learn to do Smith grinds and actually land one. So 6 hours was not bad at all, and it was a really decent grind. It looked proper, as people say, so I was really happy about that. And then after that one, like the next session, I didn't get one at all. And then the session after that, I think I started to get them, which was only a few days ago. So this is all very recent. This is all in the last couple of weeks. So yeah, it's a new trick for me entirely. I had a disappointing gap, one session where I couldn't get any more. And then the last session I did, I started to get them back again. So now from here onwards, it's all going to be a case of cleaning them up, getting them more consistent, landing them more often. And a big part of that was definitely the slappy trucks, because they were brand new and smooth. And I actually got them with the thoughts of like getting better Smith grinds, or at least longer, smoother Smith grinds, but they really helped with my Feeble grinds as well. So new trucks are great for that. I know a lot of people don't like new trucks because of the wearing them in factor, getting the bushings as tight as they want or loose as they want, and getting them how they want them. And also because you've got no wear marks on the truck hanger itself, you can get a lot of lateral slip left and right between your wheels if you're not locking in exactly right. And there was a little bit of that when I first started to do some grinds, but barely anything. And I usually lock my grinds in pretty well against the wheels. And so I had no worries whatsoever, and total confidence. And like my first runs in the bowl is covered in wax. The coping is waxed to hell. I've talked about this a lot, but that coping is really waxed. And my first couple of runs, I was doing 50-50 round the corner in the deep end of the bowl, and as I got round the corner, the grinds sped up and shot out, because it was like the centrifugal force and the whip of the corner made me speed up and it shot out. So that's about as bad as it got, but that was actually quite good fun, just to get a really like non-stop grind that actually was speeding up. So yeah, it was a bit of fun. But within that first session, they'd worn in, they got some flat spots on them, and they started to feel like trucks I've been riding for a little while. So yeah, after doing some Smiths and some Feebles, I started to get that worn edge, that kind of angled worn edge on the hanger. You get the flat top on them for doing 50-50s and things like that, but you get the front edge worn where it angles down towards the kingpin. That wear area is from the Smiths and the Feebles, so I'll show you some close-ups of that, and maybe the before and after of the wear on the trucks as well. But suffice to say, I'm really enjoying the trucks. They're working out really well. And one thing to say is that the ones I got were not the inverted kingpin model. They are the hollow lights, I think they're called. But very soon I will get the inverted kingpin model. I'm just about starting to wear on the kingpin, which I don't like because it kind of gets in the way. So I'm going to swap the base plates out for the inverted kingpin model. I just didn't get those straight away. So they'll be coming soon, and they're actually releasing, I think they just released an ultra low kingpin model, so that the kingpin is pretty much as low as the top bush. So there's going to be like that much clearance from the hanger to the kingpin. So in theory, there should be no touching the kingpin whatsoever. So I look forward to trying them out, and hopefully I'll do a video on those too. So yeah, lots of footage I'm showing you amongst me talking now. And there's one other story to tell, which is that a few weeks ago when I was skating at Crystal Palace, which is the outdoor pool style bowl that I skate quite a lot, I decided I was going to try and do some frontside disasters. And because of the pool coping, when you pop a disaster, it hits the coping really hard and pops hard. So I actually popped really high and came down really heavily on the rails into the disaster, and I managed to crack one of my rails like straight through the middle. So it's like, a literally severed in half crack, which I was quite amazed by, and it's obviously the shock of the impact. And the rails are quite hard. I like hard rails because they slide really well, but the impact just split the rail straight through the middle. It didn't fall off or anything, so I carried on riding for a little while. And during these sessions learning the Feebles, I was also doing a lot of my other tricks, and I like to do frontside lip slides. And one of those lip slides came down pretty heavy, like quite a high pop, and came down pretty heavy, and a real bang as I landed, and I actually snapped my deck. And so you can hear the crack. I mean, let's have a listen to it now.
Yeah. Crack what I heard, a crack. I thought it was your wheels. Oh shit.
So yeah, you can hear the crack of the deck, and I knew straight away it was a different kind of sound. So I picked up my deck and had a look, and there's like a big long split in the top, so you can see where the ply has just kind of burst out the top, and you can see sort of witness marks underneath below the rail. I'd actually changed my rail out for a new one, so the rail was good, but and I think the new rail actually stopped the whole thing from snapping. If the old rail was still on there, I think it would have gone. And so I would imagine when I broke my rail, it also probably put a lot of stress in the ply, and it might have weakened it a lot, and then that lip slide that I did just like let it go. So this was my new-ish cut down deck. I've done a video about that, which I'll leave a link up here and in the description below. But yeah, I'd cut that deck as a custom shape from a PAL 7-ply 875 deck. I'd cut it out to the same shape as the Bucky Lassick. I didn't have a fresh deck to go back to. I hadn't cut the next one yet. I've got a few ready to go, but I hadn't cut one yet. So I've actually gone back to riding my Steve Caballero 216 flight deck now. And it's funny, I said in that video where I'd cut down my board, I said that the decks I had been riding were flight decks. And I don't ride flight decks because I snap decks. I ride the flight decks because I like that model, but it's not available as a 7-ply. Now, funnily enough, this is the first 7-ply I've snapped since about 1994, and it's only the second deck I've ever snapped. Back in 94, for anyone that cares, it was a Salman Agar real slick deck, the one where he's dressed as a fairy on the bottom. It's like a photographic slick deck. But yeah, that was like 1994, I think I snapped that. And so I don't normally snap decks, but since I've been riding again, I've always ridden flight decks. So I didn't know whether I was a deck snapper or not. And I didn't think I did any tricks that would warrant a snap deck. I don't do flip tricks. I don't do flat ground. So usually people snap decks from doing, you know, kick flips and, I don't know, tray flips and impossibles and things like that, and landing in the middle, not landing on the bolts. But I don't do any of that. It's just my disasters. But obviously my disasters and my body weight is more than I thought, and I snapped a deck. So yeah, maybe I should be riding the flight decks full time. I've certainly gone back to the flight now with the Steve Caballero one. I had that set up as my vert board, and when I changed to the Bucky Lassick, I decided to run that Bucky board for both vert and transitions of everything. You know, I wanted only one board. I didn't want to have to swap boards around for depending on what I was riding. So I kind of shelved that Caballero deck for a while. But I'm actually really liking it, and when I put it together again, I was so surprised that it felt so like springy and flexible and like full of kind of energy and pop. It was really weird. So I didn't realize how much I really liked flight decks compared to 7-plies. down on the wheel and then it'll go. Otherwise it just goes.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's It's all a bit of an observational learning experience, but yeah, things are going well anyway. I'm happy with the Feebles, enjoying the flight decks again. I need to think about perhaps another trick. I'm going to finesse these Feebles for a bit longer and enjoy the slappy trucks for a bit longer. But anyway, hopefully you found the video interesting, entertaining at least. Leave some comments below, tell me what you think, and I will have a think about the next trick to learn. And I will see you again very soon. Thanks for watching. Take care.